All right, let's dive in. We're going to talk about something that's on a lot of people's minds, cloud security. Now, I know it can feel super complex, almost like this impossible maze, but don't worry. In this explainer, we're basically going to hand you the map. We'll break it all down piece by piece so you can walk away feeling a whole lot more confident. Let's get to it. So this is the big question, right? You're ready for the cloud. You're thinking about the innovation, the savings, the sheer scale of it all. But there's always that little voice in the back of your head going, wait a minute, how do I actually protect my data, my customers, my entire business in this new world? Trust me, you're not alone. It's the #1 concern for a really good reason. And that question brings us right to the heart of the matter, the cloud security challenge. See, the key thing to get is that moving to the cloud isn't just about switching where your servers are. It's about completely modernizing how you think about security. The old rulebook from your on-premise data center, it just doesn't apply here in the same way. It's a whole new game.
Now check out this quote, because it kind of flips that whole fear on its head. For a company like Climato Health, the cloud isn't the problem, it's actually the solution. They moved to the cloud specifically to get better security and to meet really tough data standards. So while the challenge is absolutely real, the tools and the potential are incredibly powerful.
So, how do they do it? How does that work? Well, that brings us to what is, without a doubt, the single most important idea in this entire explainer. If you only remember one thing today, please make it this one. Cloud security is all about a shared responsibility. It's the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about. So what does that actually mean in plain English? The shared responsibility model is basically a framework that says security is a partnership, it's a team effort. The cloud provider, in our examples, that's AWS, handles certain things, and you, the customer, handle others. You're in it together. And here's a really simple way to think about it that makes it all click. Imagine the cloud provider is the landlord of a super secure apartment building. They take care of the big stuff, the main gate, the security guards, the foundation of the building itself. But you are still responsible for locking the front door to your own apartment. Simple, right? But it perfectly explains the concept. So let's look at this side by side. On one side, you've got AWS as part of the deal. They're responsible for the security of the cloud. That's the heavy-duty, foundational stuff, the physical hardware, the global network, all that infrastructure. Then on the other side, that's your job, security in the cloud. That's everything you decide to put on that infrastructure, your apps, your data, and, crucially, deciding who gets the keys. Okay, let's zoom in on the provider's half of this deal, security of the cloud. This is all the stuff you get right out of the box, the foundational security that you just inherit by being on the platform. Honestly, it takes a massive operational weight off your shoulders so your team can focus on what they do best, which is building great things for your customers.
So what does this really cover? Well, we're talking about the actual physical security of data centers all over the world. We're talking about the hardware, the core software, the fundamental networking that stitches it all together. This is the bedrock that all their services, like compute, storage, and databases, are built on.
And then you see this number, 143. That's how many security and compliance certifications AWS supports. I mean, just stop and think for a second about the time, the money, the sheer effort it would take for one company to get all of those. By building on AWS, you get to inherit the benefits of all that work, whether you're handling healthcare data under HIPAA or credit cards under PCI. And this isn't some set it and forget it kind of thing. Nope, we're talking about a constant 24/7 operation. There are teams at AWS whose entire job is to monitor these global systems, day in and day out, to keep that infrastructure protected. That is a level of vigilance that's just really, really hard to do on your own. Okay, so that's what AWS handles. Now, let's flip the coin and talk about your part of the deal, security in the cloud. This is where you get to take the wheel. It's all about how you configure and use the services to protect the valuable stuff you're putting in the cloud, your data and your apps. So what does that look like? Well, think of it as your own personal security toolkit. First up, you control identity and access management. That's deciding who gets the keys to what. Then there's data protection, like using encryption to make sure that even if someone gets your data, they can't read it. You also set up network protection, using things like firewalls. And finally, you handle detection and response, keeping an eye out for anything suspicious and making sure your setup meets your specific compliance needs. And here's a perfect real-world example of a customer just nailing their side of the bargain. The CEO of T-Nex, Brian Carroll, lays it out. They use the tools AWS gives them to segment, control, and encrypt all of their sensitive data. This is security in the cloud in action. They are locking their own apartment door, and they're doing a fantastic job of it. Okay, so you get the model, you know your responsibilities. But you might be thinking, where do I even start? Well, that brings us to our last section, your cloud security playbook. And the best part is, this is not something you have to make up as you go. This is probably the most reassuring thing to hear. You are not starting with a blank sheet of paper. Cloud providers like AWS have built these incredibly detailed frameworks based on helping thousands of companies. They are, for all intents and purposes, proven roadmaps packed with best practices to help you build your strategy. One of the big ones is the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, or CAF. It neatly organizes security into 9 key areas and then puts them into 3 simple buckets. You've got directive, which is about setting the rules, like governance. You've got preventative, which is about stopping bad things before they happen, like managing access. And then you've got detective, which is all about finding issues if they do pop up, like threat detection. It's a great checklist to make sure you've covered all your bases. And the help doesn't stop there. There are other amazing guides, like the Well-Architected Framework, which helps you design secure applications from the ground up. And then there are tools like AWS Security Hub, which basically acts like an automated security guard, constantly checking your setup against best practices. You've got a whole ecosystem of support.
So, after all of that, the model, the tools, the playbooks, what's the one thing you should walk away with? It's this. Cloud security is not a product that you just buy off a shelf. It is a partnership. It's an ongoing practice. The provider secures the cloud, and you secure your business in the cloud. And that leads us to one final thought. Remember that anxiety we talked about at the very beginning? Well, when you really think about this partnership, when you combine the global security resources of a major provider with your control and a proven playbook, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Could the cloud actually be more secure than anything most companies could ever hope to build on their own? Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for watching.